Okay, so let's begin. So we are discussing with a very interesting subject, graph theory, and this is a very new topic for you all. Like to anybody, like this is complete new topic. This has more or less no relation with any of the subjects that you have studied till now. Like no connection with algebra, no connection with analysis. This will be a complete new theory. Okay, but it's easy if you go through it properly, so it will not be a problematic thing for you. So the name of the topic being graph theory. So the first question that arises in our mind: what gave the birth to this subject? Why this subject was introduced? So today, before going into the definitions and all, we will first see what are the problems that can be solved using graph theory and what motivated the study of graph theory. Okay, so uh, the first study of graph theory was done in 1736. That was the birth of graph theory. I'll tell you why. So this was the problem. This problem is known as Königsberg bridge problem. This is a German word, and Königsberg bridge problem. So what exactly is the problem? I'll tell you. So there is a town called as Königsberg. You can search in Google. The name has changed now, but previously it was called as Königsberg. So there is a town called as Königsberg, and let me draw the structure of that town. Just a simple structure. So there is a river. The name of the river was Pregel. So this was the river, and there is an island. So let me draw like this. So there was an island here. There is an island here, and there was a river called as Pregel. So this was the river here. So this was the river here. Okay, this was the river, and there was another land area here. Another land area here. This is another land area here, and this is another land area here. So altogether there were four land areas. This island was known as Nepov, the name of the island. This is another land area. So here there is land, here there is land, here there is land, and this river Pregel flows across this island and then divides into two, as you can see that, no? It flows around this island and then divides into two. So this was the river, and there were four land areas. So there was many bridges around this connecting the land areas. So there were two bridges here connecting A with C. So there were two bridges here, and again there were two more bridges here connecting the land area A with B, and one bridge here that will connect A to D, and two more bridges connecting D with the land area C. You can search in Google. This is exactly the picture of this one, Königsberg. There is a town, Königsberg. Here, this exact structure was present. Four land areas and altogether seven bridges. As you can see, no, there are seven bridges in all. I may also name the bridges. I may also name the bridges. So let me give some name to the bridges. So call this bridges A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, so you can search in Google exactly this picture you will find. Okay, this is known as this town is known as Königsberg, where this was the thing. Now, what was the problem? What was the question? So let me state the question very precisely. So the problem is as follows. The problem is as follows. So let me tell you what was the problem, how or what exactly was the question. So the question was this: starting at one land area, is it possible to walk across all the bridges exactly once, and return to the starting land area. So this is the question. The question says you start from any land area. You can start with the land area C, you can start with the land area B, etc. You start from any land area. You have to travel across this town, but transversing each bridge exactly once, and again return to the same starting area. That means, suppose I start from B, I went from B to A using this bridge. So this bridge is used now. I cannot use this bridge again. So done. I can go to C. I can have some puchka here. I can again come back to A. I can go to D. I can go to C. But you see, now I don't have any other option. I cannot return to the position I started. So can you find a way, like if you start from B, you have to reach to B by transversing all the bridges exactly one. You cannot repeat a bridge. You cannot like go and come from the same bridge. If you're using this bridge, you can use it exactly once. So this problem was first recognized by Euler in 1736. Euler wanted to know this one. Is it possible? What do you think? What is your take on this? You may try. Go start transversing. If I start from D, I'll go from C to I'll come back here. I'll go to D, I'll come back here. I'll go to A, I'll come back here. But I have to stop here. No other option to go there. What do you think? Is there a way possible? So Rajkamal says no, but just by intuition. He does not have any proof. He says no, it is not possible, but in mathematics you have to prove things. Okay, so what Rajkamal says, Euler also said that the answer to this question is negative. That means there is no way possible. But the question arose, why? How can you say that? Not by just intuition, but we have to give a general proof why this is not possible. Did you get the point? So Euler also gave the same answer as Raj gave. Raj also said no, Euler also said no, but Euler gave the proof. We will talk about the proof later on. So this gave the birth of graph theory. Now how? Now what Euler did, I'll tell you what Euler did. So you see, this land area C, it, like you can go around anywhere, right? Like if you go from A to C, if you go from land area A to C, you can roam around here. That is not a problem. You can roam around. You can go to this shop again and come again. You can travel anywhere inside this land area, but you can only use the bridge once. So this land area C, how big it is, how small it is, it does not matter to you at all. So what Euler did, he just draw a simpler version of this like this. I'll tell you how he draw. So how he drew basically. He said these are the four land areas. This is the land area A, this is the land area C, this is the land area B, and this is the land area D. Because it does not matters how big or how small the land area is. You can travel here to here, again, doesn't matter. That doesn't matter to us. Now let's connect the bridges. There are two bridges from A to B. So let's connect like this. There are two bridges. So one bridge I'll draw like this, another bridge I'll draw like this. Right? And again there are two bridges connecting A to C. So here's another bridge. Here's another bridge. There is one bridge connecting A to D, and again one bridge connecting C to D. This F, bridge number F. I'm not writing the name for the time being. So if you want to give the name to the bridges, you may give this bridge is F, this bridge is E, this bridge is G, this is D, this is C, this is A, this is B. So the Königsberg problem is simply this problem, right? The Königsberg problem is exactly this problem now. There is no difference between this graph and this graph at all, or this picture and this picture at all. Okay, so Euler, instead of solving this problem, he simplified this picture to this one, and then the question remains same. You start from any vortex. So this I'll call as vortex. Just consider geometry. This is a geometrical figure. This end points are known as vortices. You all are very much clear with that. In geometry, these are known as vortices, and these lines are known as edges. So the question is, you start from any vortex. Okay, you start from any vortex. You transverse this, transverse all the edges exactly once, and return back to the same vortex. Like if I start from B, I can go here to here, here, but I have to stop here, right? So this is the thing. So the simpler version of this Königsberg bridge problem made by Euler is this, and this is what is called as a graph. I'm not formally defining what is a graph, I'm just giving you what Euler said. So he called this figure a graph. This is what is called a graph. I'm not answering the question now why this is no, I'm just giving you an idea what is a graph. Any confusion up to here? So this led to the birth of graph theory. So this is what is known as a graph. In simple words, having some vertices, having some edges, etc. But this is not a formal definition. I'll give you a formal definition very soon. So let's go to another thing. So this, now we understood how graph theory arose in the past. Next, have you all played this game in your childhood? I have definitely played. We used to give this figure, and basically I used to give this figure and used to ask people to draw this figure without picking up the pen. Have you played this game ever?
No, sir.
No, you haven't played this game. Yes, yeah, I can see some yeses. Yeah, so when I was in class 6 or 7, I remember, we used to give this figure and ask among ourselves whether to draw this figure without picking up a pen. And what do you think? Is it possible here or no? It's actually possible in this case. Very good. Yeah, it's like this. You see, I can draw like this, 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 like this. Yeah. So I did not pick up my pen and I completed the figure. So a similar thing was asked in the Königsberg bridge problem. You see, a similar thing was asked in the Königsberg bridge problem. That means, can you draw that figure without picking up the pen and without transversing any side twice? I did not transverse this side twice. You see, I am transversing each side exactly once. Right? There's some error. Avoid that. Did you get my point? Similarly, if I ask you, I'll give you another figure this time. Okay. I'm recalling my childhood days. Okay, so can you draw this figure without picking up your pen? Just try in your copies, do some uh, work. Just try to draw this without picking up your pen and tell me whether you can do it or no. So there are conditions. What are the conditions? You have to transverse each side exactly once, or each x exactly once. The point from you are starting, you have to end there. And thirdly, there should not be any repetition of edges. With this many rules, you have to draw this picture. Can anybody do it or draw it or has drawn it under these conditions? No, you'll find that it's actually not possible. You see, you don't know the answer why, but you, by your intuition, you can definitely tell me, by your intuition, you can definitely tell me whether you can, like you cannot draw this figure, right? Like if I start like this, I cannot draw this anyhow, right? So I can go up to here. So by our intuition, we are very much clear that why we cannot draw this picture. We cannot draw this picture. But we don't know why can we not draw this picture under these conditions. We can draw this one, but why we cannot draw this one? What is the answer? Which figures can we draw and which figures we cannot draw under those three given conditions? So the answer to this question will also be given by graph theory. Okay, by the end of this course, you will have a valid reason why this can be drawn without picking up the pen, and again with those two conditions extra, that you cannot repeat a same edge and you have to start you have to end from where you start. So we will answer to this question again using graph theory. Okay, and you will become a pro. You can just by looking at the figures, you can tell me whether you can draw this figure without picking up your pen and under those conditions or not. Clear? So this is another problem that can be solved using graph theory, and this is exactly the Königsberg bridge problem. So if you have the answer to this question, you can answer Königsberg bridge problem, right? Okay, so as you can see, the graph theory will be very much fun for you all, and it is actually a fun loving subject for me. Because you can picturize things, you can think a lot of ways and so on. Okay, so I have given you another example. Another thing that arises in our mind, or not my mind, it actually in 1852 a question arose in the mind of a student, that can we color the map of England, just pose the question properly. Let me pose the question like this. The question was this. It was posed in 1852 by Francis. He was a student of geography, okay? He noticed that a map of the countries of England could be colored with only 4 different colors in such a way that each country had exactly one color and adjacent countries each had different colors. So what he noticed, I want to color a map. In simple words, let me draw some map. This is some map. These are the partitions, like these are some states or something I can say. So I want to color this map. So if how coloring should be done, like if I am coloring this green, I cannot color this one green, this one green, this one green, this one green, this one green. All the adjacent ones must be colored differently, because this 5 are adjacent to this one. I cannot color them green, but again I can color this one green. So I have used one color till now. Let me use another color. I am coloring this black. I cannot color this black. I cannot color this black, right? But I can definitely color one of this as black. I'm coloring this as black. So I have already used two colors. Let me take another color, blue. I am coloring this blue. I am coloring this blue, and I cannot color with blue here because it is adjacent to this one. So I have to use a fourth color here. Suppose that the fourth color is white. You see, I have colored this map using four different colors. Using four different colors such that no adjacent parts have been colored with the same color. So how many colors are required to color this one? I have exactly used four colors. The four colors being green, blue, black, white. And I have not used any other color. So the question is, can I do the same thing for the world map? So interesting, you see. I want to color the whole world map with only four colors under this condition. Is it possible to color just with four colors? And the answer to this question is yes. Very interesting, right? Just a minute, I'll show you something. I'll show you something, just a minute. So just see this map. Just see this map. You can also search in Google as I have searched. So just look at this map. This is composed of only four colors under the condition I stated. So the whole map of the world can be colored only using four colors such that the adjacent ones are not colored with the same color. Right? Yeah. So this was another problem, or this is another problem that can be answered using graph theory. Why only four colors are enough to color a map? Okay, though we will not talk about coloring in our course this time, but if you are interested in graph theory, you can pursue graph theory in your higher studies and study about this four colors theorem. This is known as four coloring theorem, I guess, something like that, or four vortex theorem. So such a nice application and such a beautiful thing. Clear up to here? Any confusion? Up to here, I'm just giving you motivations today, like what are the applications of graph theory? Where can I use graph theory? This I'm talking about. I'm not talking about any like definition, something else. I'm just telling you where graph theory can be used. Okay, good enough. And lastly, a last problem I'll discuss, so that will give you another idea what more applications does graph theory has. So, and this is another interesting problem. I'm asking you this question. What is the question? Is it true? Is it true? Why this is yeah. Is it true that in any gathering of n, which is more than one, n people, there are at least two people with exactly the same number of friends. So a very weird application, and maybe it will be very hard to digest for you for the time being, but later I'll prove this one. So the question is, suppose I am gathering n people in a party. This n should be strictly more than one. Suppose I'm gathering 10 people, 15 people, 12 people, etc. The question is, is there, like the question is, will there be at least two people which will have same number of friends in that party? Like suppose I am one of the members in that party. In that party I have got three friends. So can I guarantee there will be another one having exactly three friends? So a very weird, you cannot visualize how it can be solved using graph theory for the time being. But later on we will solve this problem using graph theory, and graph theory gives the answer yes. In any party you go where the number of people is strictly more than one, I can definitely guarantee that there will be at least two people having the same number of friends. So again, such a nice question, and answer being yes will be given by graph theory. Am I clear with everything what I said till now? You must be thinking that only the starting part is just interesting, later part will be very boring. No. From first to big end, from beginning to end, everything will be very much interesting. Okay, everything will be very much interesting. We will have so many problems. You can draw diagrams, etc., etc. So you will never feel bored while studying graph theory. So let's start our course. Like, what do you mean by our course? Let's start with definitions, formulas, etc. So we'll start now. But unfortunately, there are a lot of definitions in the beginning, because this is a complete new subject for you. So you have to first learn about a lot of new terminologies. What is a graph? What is this? What is that? Etc. 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 Okay. So slowly and slowly, firstly I'll give you some definitions. You have to understand the definitions very well so that I can use them later on. Okay, so when we start, there are a lot of definitions given. Because this is completely a new subject, you have to learn a lot of things. So let me start by formally defining what is a graph. So I have already given you a very informal definition of a graph. As you know, what was the very informal definition of a graph? Like having some dots and having some lines. Like in the previous page, I drew some pictures consisting of some lines and dots. That exactly is a graph. So how do we define that mathematically? Let me state that. So graph. What is a graph? Okay. So let me tell you what is a graph. Just a minute. A graph G is a triple. That means consisting of three things. Triple. What is the triple comprises of? The triple is like this. The triple has V, E and gamma. Okay, I'll tell you what are the things of this. So graph comprises of three things: V, E and gamma. Don't get confused in V and gamma, otherwise I should use a simple name. Let's not use gamma, let's use small g. So graph G is a triple, V, E and small g, where, so you might be thinking what is V, what is E. I'll tell you where. Number one, V is a finite non-empty set. Let me state it. I'll tell you the meaning of everything. Called as, it has a name, the set has a name, set of vertices, called as the set of vertices. So this set V is known as set of vertices. Now, as we are thinking what is E, I'll also state what is E. Number two, what is E? E is again a finite set. E is a finite set, may be empty. So the set V cannot be empty, but the set E is always empty. So is a finite set may be empty, and what is this called as? Called as set of edges. Set of edges. Okay. And lastly, you might be thinking, what is G? Small g, not capital G. And what is this G? G is a function. So you know what is a function very well. And G is a function. G is a function called as, so this also has a name, called as incidence function. Called as the incidence function. And incidence function, so how this function will map? That assigns to each edge I should tell you what is the edge. One element, don't get confused, just write it down, I'll explain, don't worry about it, okay? Just to copy paste what I am writing. One element subset V, or a two element subset and or two element subset UV when U comma V belongs to capital V. Okay, just to copy this down, I'll explain what I mean by this. Just to copy paste down. So what do I mean by a graph? A graph G is a triple VEG. That means a graph is composed of three things: a set V, E, and a function G. Now what is V? V can be any non-empty set. Okay? V can be any non-empty set. So you can take V to be any non-empty set. You can take V as 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, anything. And this set V is called as the set of vertices. Okay, this set V is a set, and that is known as set of vertices, and the members of V are called as vertices because it is a set of vertices. So any member that belongs to V will be called a vertex or a vertices. In plural it will be vertices, singular it will be vertex. Clear? What is E? It is again a finite set. It may be empty as well. You see, V cannot be empty, but this set E can be empty as well. And this set is known as set of edges. This is known as set of edges. So the members of E are called as edges. Good. What is G? It is a function. So function has some domain, has some codomain that will assign. So what will this function do? This function G, which is known as the incident function, what it does, it will assign to every edge. That means to every edge, to every member of E. You see, that assigns to each edge a one element subset V or a two element subset UV. Where this? So I'll tell you what is the meaning of this. G is a function that will assign to every member of E. So G is a function from E to something. So what will G do? To every member here, G will send that to either this kind of subset, one point subset, or a 2-point subset. So I can say this is the power set of V. Okay, so G of E can be either a singleton one for some V in V, or G of E can be a 2-point subset. A 2-point subset, that is U comma V. Did you get my point or no? So what will this map do? To every edge belonging to the edge set E, it will send E to one of the subsets, 1-point subset of V or 2-point subset of V. Any confusion up to here? So one more line I'll write here. What is that? For convenience, we will write GE equals to U comma V, where U and V may be same. So instead of writing 1-point subset, 2-point subset, for convenience, I'll simply write G of E is U comma V, a 2-point subset always. U and V may be different, so this is the case. Or if U and V are same, this is the case. Like U and V are same, so we will think that this is nothing but this one. So I'll not write this and this again and again. When they are equal, I'll write simply U comma U, something like that. Did you get my point, what I said now? This function may not be injective, may not be surjective, nothing else. I'll tell you why this function is not injective. Don't worry, I'll give you an example, then you'll be clear why this function is not injective. I did not write that this is injective. It may not be, it is just a function. So let me, that means I'm talking about that the domain is E. For each edge E in E. That means I'm talking about the domain of the set is E. How do you write? F from R to R, fx equals to x square for all x in R. That means you are saying for all x in R, this is true. That means this is the domain. Clear? So let me give you a very simple example. Just following the definition. So, and that will be the last thing for today. So what is the example? I'm considering this example. G equals to V E G, where V is composed of, suppose, 4 points A, B, C, D, and E is composed of, suppose, I'm representing by capital letters. Okay, it is not necessary that you always represent it by capital letters. And what is G? G will take every edge to some 2-point sets. So G of A, I am assigning that as A comma B. G of B, I am assigning it as B comma C, and G of C, I am assigning it as D comma D. So is this a graph? Just follow the definition. Is this a graph? Yes, it is a graph. You see, a non-empty subset is another set. And what is this map? G. This G will map. To every edge a 2-point subset. So A is suppose taking this subset, B is taking BC, and as I said, they both may be equal. So C is here. So Rajkamal, in this case, G is 1 1, because but it may not be the case all the time. Remember that. I'll show you in the next class. G may not be 1 1 all the time. So then G is a graph. That's all for today. In the next class, I'll give you more examples of graph. I'll pictorially represent graphs, etc., etc. Thank you. If you have any confusion, feel free to ask.